everybody, and welcome out to the show today. I want to thank you all for stopping by, and we got a great interview set up with Joe D. We're going to talk about how he got to where he was, how he got clean and sober, and what he's currently doing right now in order to stay clean and sober. So it's a pretty good interview. But before we get into that, let's get into the tattoo submission. Now, if you're interested in doing a tattoo submission, you can reach out to me at Soberontwowheels@gmail.com. Two is actually spelled TWO. So Soberontwowheels@gmail.com. I've got a few of them, but I could always use some more, folks. So please reach out to me, email me. Let's see those tattoos. What we're going to do right now is we're going to get into tattoo submission by Fred W. This tattoo is nautical design, cool little anchor. And it says on there, I refuse to sink. Now, this is perfect for us because we're all in the clean and sober recovery, addiction. Look, perfect for us. We refuse to sink on a daily basis, man, just by staying here and doing what we got to do. So awesome submission, man. Thank you so much for doing it. Fred has also reached out to me about wanting to do the show. If you're interested in doing the show, you can also email me at soberontwowheels@gmail.com and we can set it up. We can do Zoom. You don't even have to be in my area. Please reach out to me. Look forward to hearing from you guys. We're going to get into the interview now with Joe D. Great guy, great story. I could have actually spent another half hour, 45 minutes with this guy. So very easy to talk to, really good story. And I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So thanks for sticking around and please enjoy the show. See you all on the flip side. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the interview portion of the show. Thank you for stopping by. We got a great interview set up today. With Joe D, who has 16 years of sobriety. He's been, around my life for about, 8 years now. I've known him for quite some time. Good dude, solid dude. I knew him prior to being a member of my current club. He was with another club back in the day. And, he's been a part of this whole sober MC world for quite some time, which is a great fit for us because, that's really what this channel is about, folks. This is about me trying to get people to see that we're out here, that there's plenty of people out here, whether you're club, independent, doesn't matter. There's plenty of sober riders out there that still can do this lifestyle. I think there's this huge stigma out there that, you can't be clean and sober and be in this world. And that's not the truth at all. There's plenty of us out there and we enjoy the lifestyle and, we're diehard and a lot, there's a lot of us that are maybe a little bit more even diehard than others, but you know what, we're out here. So this is why we got it. And, Joe's got a lot of experience, so I think this is going to be a great interview today. So welcome to the show, Joe. Thanks so much for doing this for me, man.
Yeah, no problem at all. Honored to be asked, brother.
Yeah, man. And, like I said, I know you got 16 years. So, did you start drinking and doing drugs or, were you just strictly a drink guy?
No, I found the wonders around the age of 13, I guess. Dad was a good heavy drinking man, working man. And, I grew up with it. I mean, everybody in my family did it. And it was just one of those family traditions.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Which is weird for me because neither one of my parents drank.
Indeed.
They did when I was a little kid. And then I think it was, my father had heart problems and stuff like that. So I would say probably from, grade school on, there was no alcohol in my house. My alcohol stuff kind of was turned on to my elements, the people around me. I grew up in a small town outside of Pittsburgh, and all we had to do out there was, basically drink and play football. So, and then, typically fist fighting and other stuff kind of fell in line with that. But, hey.
Stuff that comes with it.
Yeah. So, so you're an AA guy.
Yeah, I'm pretty much AA. I mean, drugs are a part of it, but not so much. It was always drinking and so forth that led me to the powder that I like the smell of.
Gotcha. I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
And now, did you go through a like a clinic or a rehab?
No. So how I got into the rooms. And, life was going on. I was married previously and, life was rolling on. I did the drink thing. She kept the house in order And, one day I walked through the door. She looked at me. She says, "You got to go, man. I can't put up with this anymore." So I moved down to Florida. We separated. I moved down to Florida to go to motorcycle mechanic school, and trying the whole time to get the relationship back. She had told me, I got to stop drinking. I got to quit drinking. And, I'm a firm believer that anybody who's in the rooms has to have hit their bottom. I'm a believer that if you don't think you've hit it, you're going to go back out. That's my experience. So yeah, it was a Saturday night. I can pull up those feelings like it was yesterday. I was on the phone with her, begging her to take me back, doing that good stout man cry,
Mm-hmm.
the ugly cry. And she told me no, that I wasn't coming home. So I made a decision that night, and I went and I had a little bit left of the powder and about a 6-pack of beer left. I dumped the powder. I drank a couple of more beers, and I looked up AA on the computer. First meeting was on September 10th of 2006. It was a Tuesday. And I haven't looked back. I went in, pulled up on the bike being all macho man, and I was sitting around the table. There were probably 10 or 15 people at the meeting. And I think you guys tricked me because you had me read the 9-step promises. And I couldn't believe that could happen to me. And I broke out crying in a room full of 10, 15 people. And this really nice old lady next to me puts her arm around me and takes it. And, and I'm sort of, lots of crying and early sobriety, I think. So,
Well, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, really, because, whether you were crying or whatever before you got into it,
right.
Because of your circumstances or whatever. But, after you get a little bit of clean time under your belt and the feelings actually start coming back that have been kind of tampered down over the years. And then all of a sudden you start to feel stuff again because now you're not numb to it.
Right.
Then you're like, oh, man, here we go.
Yeah.
It's funny, though, that you said that because about you went on the computer. So how crazy is that in this day and age, how much the internet has impacted our world?
Oh, sure.
Because, even with us, like being on trips, certain members of our club will be on their phone going, hey, man, there's a meeting at 5:00 in this town and we're in the middle of Jamoke. And, all right, cool. This is the meeting we're going to go to. And boom, here you go. We're going to a meeting.
Right.
Compared to the old days where you had to have a list or, write the local group
or whatever.
Yeah. And be like, hey, can I get a list? And, or, maybe there was a phone number back then.
Right.
But now, like with the internet, it's crazy to me. And that's, kind of goes in line with what I'm doing here. Right. Like,
sure.
I'm trying to use this as a tool to kind of promote our world. And it's not about being in our club. It's about being a sober rider.
Yeah.
And, because I've even said this multiple times on here that there's plenty of sober clubs out there. If that's what you're into, man, you go hit up whoever your local club is.
Right.
And I think that there's going to be times, and I'm hoping this is true, that there's going to be somebody that watches this podcast that goes, oh shit, man, there might be, somebody, and then bam, next thing you know, one of the other clubs out there and
right.
pick a state, I think it's going to be beneficial for our world because like I said, man, there's this huge stigma and a lot of it's perpetuated by the media that, we're all scumbags and we all do drugs and we all drink and we're all getting arrested. And that's not true, man. It's not even true in those bigger clubs that we're not going to bring up their names.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's not even true there. It's just this huge stigma. And, you know, they want to put it as one or two bad apples, you know, spoils the whole bunch. Well, that's not the case.
Right.
Just like, you know, there's, and I'm not going to get into politics on here because I don't do that, but we can make an argument on the other side of that is, you know, look how many there's cops out there that have done bad shit. And that doesn't mean that all cops are bad. So, you know, I think that this is going to be the tool that's going to help us. So going back to it. All right. You know, you said you got back into you're you know, now you're in the room and you're starting to did you really get into it at that point? Or was it just, I went to my first meeting and then I took a couple of days to think about it?
No, actually, so at that first meeting, one of the guys looked at me and said, "Hey, man, I know where you need to go." And he said, "I'll pick you up on Wednesday. We'll hit this other meeting." So we go to this other meeting and I pull up and it was at a sober clubhouse down in Orlando. I got sober down there. And we pulled into the parking lot and there were like 20 bikes.
Oh, wow.
Sitting out in the parking lot. And, you know, you talked about the lifestyle and that sort of thing, the stereotypical lifestyle of the biker. That's what I was, man. And that's what I wanted. And that's what I wanted to portray, you know? And when I pulled in, you know, being, again, 2 days sober, 3 days sober, I think that was one of the critical points was pulling into that parking lot and seeing all those motorcycles and looking at those guys and going, wow, you're just like me and you're sober.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, in our club and other clubs, you know, there's some mean, scary looking dudes and they're like sober and they're big freaking teddy bears. And, you know, I really think that was pivotal for me to see somebody just like me.
Right.
You know, you hear people in the rooms talking about, you know, I feel like I can go into any meeting and be comfortable. Well, for me, that took a while.
Right.
You know, I had to see that. I had to see those people like me, and I had to associate with those people like me until I could be social to other lifestyle people, you know, the businessman and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I get that, man, because even with me, so I had the same problem going into the rooms at the beginning because I'm very self-conscious of, or I was, let's put it that way. I'm not anymore, but very self-conscious of, you know, how I looked, how I was perceived, or how I thought I was perceived. There you go. Let's put it that way. Even in scenarios of like going to the gym, dude, like, you know, I would, at the beginning, I'd be like, oh man, I don't want to be at the gym, man. Everybody's looking at the fat guy trying to lose weight and blah, blah, blah. Reality, dude, is nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. And I think what happened with me in the rooms was when I finally did find a men's meeting where there was a bunch of guys that were very welcoming. You know, and I'm not, back then, I wasn't really like the hugger type. So now, you know, I'm walking into a meeting, a random meeting where I don't know the people. And there's people trying to hug me when I'm walking in the door. And I'm like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know,
Take it easy, buttercup.
You know? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So when I got to that Tuesday night meeting, and there was maybe a couple of dudes that rode or whatever, but it just felt right. And I think that that's a big part of this too, man, is I feel like there might be people that give up on the program because they don't find the right home group or group to go to that is maybe, you know, comfortable for them. And unfortunately, I guess there's going to be areas rural areas or whatever, where there's not as many meetings, that's just going to have to be. I mean, look, dude, your choices are this and this.
Yeah.
And, I think that COVID was a blessing and a curse for AA and NA. Now, and I'm going to give you both sides of it. So I think as far as the blessing part with the internet, having Zoom meetings, and I know a lot of people weren't fans of Zoom meetings, but I feel like there was a lot of people that clung to Zoom meetings, because now it's, hey man, I just walk in my room and turn on my computer and I can hit a meeting. And now I'm comfortable. I'm in my own house.
Right.
The bad part of it is you are missing the before and after meetings, and the maybe the personal conversation or the hug.
Right.
So I feel like maybe that it opens some doors though for people to get more involved in it, because now that COVID's over and we're back to regular meetings and stuff like that, now those people may be comfortable just walking into a meeting because they've spent time in these Zoom meetings and stuff like that, hey man, we'll see. I don't know how it's going to work, but I know that in certain areas though, it killed a lot of clubhouses and meetings and stuff like that because they got shut down, whether it was on, their own personal choice, or I know one meeting here locally, they got shut down because it was a church, and the church was just like, look, we don't want anybody in our church. So you don't have to worry about your dog barking, man. My dog will bark and you'll hear him eventually, her. But yeah, man. So I just feel like internet is definitely changing the game for this. Look, even the meetings that Patches and Wendy were running, like I saw you on there a couple times, but how cool was that we got to have meetings and there was dudes in there from like Australia, and I think Patches had some family from Ireland that showed up the one night. I mean, I would have never got to meet those people.
Yeah.
So, it's just cool.
I think with that also, in that time frame, these people who have like 1 or 2 years probably now sober, getting sober during that time, man,
I give you props.
Hats off to them.
Yeah.
For like you were saying, for me, I needed that interaction. I needed to see with my eyes people who were just like me, didn't have to drink right now.
Dude, and you nailed it, man, because I think I even brought that up before. Like I give anybody that got sober during that time frame props, because it was very hard to either get an in-person meeting or, at that point, like how would you have found a Zoom meeting? You know what I mean? I know there was pages created for that where you could maybe search it on Facebook or whatever, but even then, dude, it's you're missing the I don't want to say essential, some of the bigger parts.
One of the sides of the triangle.
There you go. It's not really essential for some people. Some people are just that it doesn't matter to them. But yeah, man. So that's and what was crazy was, and here's more of the bad part. Okay, there was a documentary, I believe it was on HBO, where they followed these. It was a guy. It was 2 guys and a girl that were drug addicts from New York City. And it followed them for it was either 10 or 20 years. And it was, I don't know how the guy did this documentary. He must have lived with these people for like 10 years to do this. And it was really hard to watch because you're watching people in the depths of it, man. I mean, it was bad. But at the end, one of the 3 got clean, and it was this lady, and she finally got her shit together. And the one dude died, and the other guy was doing kind of okay, but COVID hit and shut down all the meetings in Brooklyn or wherever they lived. And she had become the sober person of the year for New York City or something like that. She won this award.
Right.
Because she had started some meetings in different areas and had done like all this extra work. So we're talking about somebody that I guess we would consider like an elder in our community, right?
Mhm.
Somebody that started meetings and was sponsoring a ton of people. Dude, COVID hit, she relapsed and she died.
Yep.
And I've heard some of those stories where people have, because of the isolation and not being able to go to meetings. And so I know it hit our community hard, but I also feel like I'm trying to take a positive out of it and say that, it allowed some of us to continue, and it allowed maybe some newer people to really get into it.
I don't know. I think, especially with the newer people or younger people, they're really comfortable with this, man. I mean, us growing up, we still had rotary phones.
Dude, I'm going through it right now. So like I on my channel alone, okay, and this is not a pat myself on the back fest. This is an explanation. So I've got like almost 12,000 views, but I've only got 155 subscribers because there's a lot of older guys, even amongst our crew, that watch YouTube, but they're not going to set up a YouTube account. And you need to set up a YouTube account to subscribe to the channel. So it's like this weird, you know what I mean? And that's fine. Look, man, it is what it is, but it's just, you hit it right there, boom. Like we're not really, there's a good portion of us older guys that aren't really into this. Right. I am because, it kind of goes with my work and some other stuff that I've done in the past. So I'm cool with it, but I know that there's a good portion of people out there that just aren't, computer savvy and stuff like that. But
I'm one of them.
Yeah, you're doing fine, man. So, when you started to get into it, and at that point, did you kind of like hit your groove where you were doing like a regular meeting, got a home group, got a sponsor, all that stuff?
So I was really fortunate. Like I said, I pretty much got kicked out of Virginia, and I was doing the school thing, and class was from 6 a.m. to noon. So I had noon until the next day to be with myself. And so, yeah, like I said, I went to that clubhouse and hooking up with those guys and starting to go out with them. And I basically, I was really fortunate. I think, God puts in your path what you need. And I think at that really first days, first month, first, 6 months, whatever, of my sobriety, I had that time. I was hitting, I'd hit like a freaking 2 o'clock, a 5 o'clock, and 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I was able to, the ex bought me out of the house, so I had some money to live on. And so I didn't have anything to worry about really, except going to school and getting sober. And again, like I said, I think God totally did that for me because, I left the house, I had like $2,000 and no job. So, but yeah, so I did that pretty much, hung out at the clubhouse, got service positions there. They had a coffee bar. So I chilled out at the coffee bar and, pour coffee for folks as they come in and out. And there was this guy, Vinny. He was my first sponsor, and he was one of those bikers that I saw. And he just like seemed to have it all together, and I asked him, a couple of weeks sober, I'm going to these meetings, everybody's talking about steps and sponsors and actually taking an active part in your sobriety.
Right.
And so I asked Vinny to be my sponsor, and he looked at me and he asked me, and he says, "Are you done?" And I'm like, kind of odd question. But yeah, so I got back with him the next day and I said, "Yeah, man, I'm done." And he got me into my steps.
Right on.
And I worked the steps. And I'm a firm believer it's not a one-time thing. It's like, oh yeah, I've worked my steps. It's like, okay, well, what step are you working on now?
Right.
And I absolutely didn't do it right, and I didn't get everything out, but it kept me sober until I did the steps again, and as I sobered up, more of that stuff, more of those little memory bubbles started popping up. And it's like, oh yeah, or you're in a meeting and somebody mentioned something. And it's like, ooh, I did that. Ooh, I'm still kind of pissed that somebody did that to me. Maybe I need to talk again and, write it down. So that, so yeah, I got right into it. I got right into the steps, and I was, I was like, one of the things that I really noticed in my early sobriety is I didn't smile a lot.
Right.
So I'm living down in Florida in a 1-bedroom apartment, and the people I know are like the kids I'm going to school with. So I was 36. I'm going to school with a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds, and there's just not much joy in Joe's life at the time. Then I happened to notice, I woke up one morning and kind of caught my reflection in the mirror before I jumped in the shower, and I was smiling. And it was one of those, what the hell do you have to smile about? I pretty much gave away everything that was my life. And it was, I'd seen enough change, not in my surroundings, but in me. And just that short time, in like 3 months, 4 months, that, sobriety gave me my smile back.
Right.
And that's probably the biggest gift, one of the biggest gifts I've gotten from just not drinking today. Don't drink and don't be an asshole,
Yeah, that's, and that's crazy because, like I said, I've known you for almost 9 years now. And you seem, every time I see you, dude, you're like in fairly good mood, man. Like I don't ever see you. I've never seen you pissed off. I don't think I've ever seen you pissed off and angry. You seem very even keel. And I know that you're quiet, but you are always having a good time and enjoying the moment. Oh. So for me to man, I got to not cut grass before I do this. I'm still sweating. So for me to try to envision you pre is tough because I know who you are now. And I think that's, it's one of those weird things because I actually, even we had Carp on the show, right? And I've known him the same amount of time. Right. And that guy's got his shit together. So to think of him as not having his shit together, right, that's hard for me to comprehend. Mm-hmm. And I've heard his story, and it's it's a humdinger. But like, it's just, I think that's probably one of the beautiful things about this program, right? Is it does change your life. It rewires your head to think right, to like do the right thing and be the right type of person instead of being that person you were before. Right. There's this, I've seen it on the internet. Like people are like, oh, it's a cult, blah, blah, blah. It's not, dude. And I got to be honest with you, man. Like when I came in the rooms, dude, I thought everybody was like this Bible thumper, going to try to convert me, blah, blah, blah. And I was basically agnostic at that point. Because I had an aunt that was in it, and so I knew a little bit about it. And I always heard them talking about their higher power or God or whatever. So I was like, dude, I'm not doing that. Yeah. So I think that's what stopped me from getting into it before I should have got into it. Mm-hmm. But you're talking about riding and stuff like that. So, you were riding as you were going through your addiction. So how, like, did you start riding as like a young kid or?
Did the dirt bike thing, not by any means what some of the people we know have done growing up riding and dirt biking and racing and all that kind of stuff. I got my first street bike when I was 26.
Okay.
and it was a 78 shovel head that I quickly learned how to work on. And that was actually one of the reasons when shit hit the fan, I went to Florida to school because I enjoyed working on it. But no, I had that when I moved down to Florida and hooked up with the guys down there. And it was really weird though, because when I was using or whatever, I always used to giggle that I'd almost rather ride my bike than walk. as screwed up as that was, because I know 3 people, I guess, who've actually died on their bikes.
Yeah.
And one of them was leaving a party that I was at. So that was pretty freaking nuts.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess I heard somewhere there are drunk bikers and there are old bikers, but there's not many old drunk bikers. And I always kind of wonder about that saying, because I still know a lot of people who drink and are older, but I also understand what it means. Is for me anyway, using that saying, I guess, is the older that I get, the more I couldn't imagine still doing what I used to do.
Right.
And riding, especially the way we ride,
Yeah, I mean, even before I got sober, I gotta be honest with you, it wasn't, I didn't do a lot of drinking and riding, because I guess at that point, you figure I got sober when I was 40, but, prior to that riding, I just already knew that there was this inherent danger of riding to begin with. So add on top of that some alcohol or drugs or whatever, and your mind is not running the way it should be. And that to me, I mean, I'm not saying I never did it, but it wasn't something that I regularly did. Because it was just, to me, I was like, man, and dude, if we were riding like we ride now, oh my God, no way. There's no way in hell I could do that. For people out there that don't know, man, we ride club style, handlebar to handlebar, with a couple feet from front tire to the dude in front of his back tire, or wherever you are in the pack. And you can't even there's no time to sightsee anything, man. You're laser focused on what's going on, because it's you gotta pay attention. And then on top of that, you gotta pay attention to the assholes around you that are texting and whatnot. And it happened just this year, where some lady on 95 rode into a pack of people that were doing a toy run down here on 95, man. I mean, it's scary stuff, man. I just, it's, I'm happy that I'm in the lifestyle that I am and a part of the club that I am in, because, and this just as well, because you've been in another sober club too, that it takes our sobriety to a whole new level.
Right.
It's like AA or NA on steroids, man. There's a lot that goes into it, and for us to do that, we lose a lot that we worked hard for. It's not worth it, and it also gives us, however many other people to call, make a phone call to, if you're having a bad day or whatever. It's an amazing thing, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And for the people out there, that I know, people that are not in clubs that are sober riders, that have their little clique of people.
Right.
It's the same thing, man. Yeah. It's just a little different, but it's the same principle. So before we wrap this up, we got about 5 minutes left. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that maybe I didn't bring up, that you feel like, would be, beneficial for somebody out there listening?
I don't know. I know for me, when you were talking about your aversion to the God thing, I was brought up in a religion, and it never seemed to work. You know, the things I was doing as a 13-year-old boy or whatever, you know, I was going to hell for.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, so when I came into these rooms, I had that prejudice, man. You know, and it was like, man, I don't know, you know, the God thing. I just, and I always, you know, so I left a third step meeting when I was like 2 or 3 months sober, and you know, all this God stuff and turning it over and all this stuff. Um, I'm, I'm I'm going down the highway in Florida, and I, I'm like verbal. I'm having a verbal argument with myself, like I'm a nut. It's not just in my head. I'm talking. I'm like, man, this whole God thing, and you know, I tried it, and it's just not fucking working. And these people, they want me to, you know, suddenly I gotta believe in this higher power, and everything's gonna be better, and all this. And I'm sure people passing me were like looking at me like I'm
Who is
crazy.
this? Yeah.
Yeah, the dude on the bike going up, you know, like answering myself, going back and forth, and and I was really grateful that the folks in the rooms let me develop that higher power. And I would say for anybody out there who's new, or even if you're not new, if you're still just not cool with the God thing, number one, I know a lot of people with a lot of time that don't have God.
Mm.
You know, they are atheists and they're sober, you know,
Right.
and they're just fine. I mean, you know, 35, 40 years, they're fine. Um, but for me, one of the best things I ever heard about, if you're struggling with the higher power thing, especially if you already have um, a bias or whatever that's keeping you away from it, take a piece of paper, write down everything you think you know, or everything you've been told about this God person or thing, whatever. Um, turn it over, turn the piece of paper over, write down what you want your God to be, you know. And ironically, you know, my higher power probably looks a lot like Bob Seger, you know, kind of like a long haired, good time, you know, older gentleman with, you know, gray hair or whatever. But, you know, kind of it looks like an old biker, you know, but it's like, you know, somebody that, you know, that I've been able to identify with. And, you know, I think for me, developing that relationship with a higher power has definitely kept me helped to keep me sober, because it's, you know, it tells me in the book at some time that sometime no human power is gonna stand between me and the drink. And you know, when crap hits the fan and I'm sitting in my room at 2 o'clock in the morning and the squirrels are running, you know, chances are I'm not going to reach out.
Right.
You know, I'm going to sit there. I'm going to fight that demon by myself. And you know, on some of those nights, especially when I was early in sobriety, I'm glad the gun wasn't loaded.
Right.
You know, but I'm sitting there and I'm white knuckling. I didn't drink, but option B was an option. You know, so I had to, you know, I had to glom onto that higher power thing. And then I let you guys hold me up until I could stand on my feet again. So if anybody's struggling,
that's awesome, man. And I appreciate you doing that. That's, you know, those are the type of messages that people like us that come into the rooms need to hear, you know, and I definitely appreciate you sharing that story, man, because hopefully that, you know, somebody stuck it out to the end of this and hears that and gets this to hear that and soak it up, man. You know, I definitely appreciate you coming out and doing the show today. I know you had to do some running around before to get here. So much appreciated, brother.
I'm good.
And,
brother.
great interview, man. Great interview. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And for you folks that stuck it out to the end, I thank you very much. And please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out, keeps us going. And we will see you all next week. Thank you. Have a great day.
Take care.
Thank
Love
you.
brother. Later.
Love you, man.